Hey,
How are you?
yeah, I'm really good. How are you?
Good. Can you see me good?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, good. Great.
Oh, well, thanks for joining me today.
Yes.
It'd be great to dive in about herbs and how it affects the menstrual cycle, really. So you're the best person to speak to about that. So, first of all, can you let us know a bit more about you and what the reasons for you to get into this kind of area?
Absolutely. So I started getting acne when I was 8 years old, and that's really when this whole process really started for me. I was on antibiotics for about 5 years total.
Wow.
It was a long time. When I was, when I was 13, my doctor was like, your only option is Accutane. I didn't want to do that. So we went to a new dermatologist, and she put me on antibiotics and birth control. And it worked great. You know, my skin looked great. Everything was fine. But at the time, I didn't know. My doctors didn't tell me anything about birth control or any of the effects that it can have on your body. Yeah. And about 3.5 years later, I just intuitively knew that I could not be on pills the rest of my life. I was like, this has to change. You know, one day I'm going to want to get pregnant. I can't be on birth control. What's going to happen then? And so I got off the antibiotics, but I was still taking birth control. And about 6 months later, I got off birth control on my own. I didn't talk to my doctor or anything about it. During that 6 months, I was researching, trying to find as much information as I could about a woman's body and hormones, and just trying to understand the cycle better. Yeah. And there's so much conflicting information out there. And at the time I was like 16, so I was so overwhelmed. And when I got off, everything was great for about 3 months. But once the 3-month mark hit, I'm sure you know, post-birth control syndrome started for me. And that basically just means if you went on birth control for a symptom, say heavy periods, or for me, acne, it usually will come back worse than it was before. And it's about 3 to 6 months after the pill, because that's how long it takes for an egg to mature. And so my skin just broke out in the most insane way. I mean, the only spot that you could see was my forehead. Everything else was completely covered in acne, bright red cysts all down my neck and my chest. It was really intense. I'd never had that before. And I didn't know what to do. I was freaking out. And I was trying everything. You know, I was taking like milk thistle and probiotics, and I was like, it'll work itself out. Everything will be fine. I didn't have any idea that my body was completely depleted of nutrients, and it had no idea how to make hormones anymore. And like, I didn't know these things. And so it was a long journey. But eventually I started figuring things out. I started taking maca. My cycle started to regulate. Everything started to balance itself out. My skin started healing. Yeah. And that's when I really got passionate about holistic healing, healing your body naturally. And then herbs came in, because with herbalism, you are your own healer. And I think that's so important. And what I always say is that it's so important for women to take their power back in their health, because we always give it to someone else and like, they know better. And it's like, yes, they're a doctor, they do know, but they don't always provide us the information that we need. And we don't always question and say, is this really right for me and my lifestyle? So that's the great thing about herbalism is it's all about, you know, healing yourself. What can you do for yourself? And just implementing that healing into your life every day. And that's really why I got into it. And since then, it's just a huge passion of mine, something that I absolutely love. And I've seen so much healing through myself because of herbs and lifestyle changes. And women that take my products or work with me or ask me questions, you know, they have seen such dramatic effects just from taking these plant medicines.
Yeah, and it's great that it's all natural as well. So you're not putting these drugs in to get the same effect better. You're healing it at like the root cause.
Exactly.
That's great. How long did it take you to kind of heal your skin then from coming off the birth control pill?
It took several months. I would say maybe like 6 months. And I mean, I still have scarring from it, like 3 years later. I still get acne every once in a while. It's not, the cycle is something that is always changing. And for someone like me who's very sensitive, anything can affect it. Yeah. But yeah, it took about 6 months to heal from it. But, it all depends on you.
Cool. So what would you say if someone has really bad PMS cramps? What kind of herbs or a herb would you recommend?
My first would be red raspberry leaf. Red raspberry leaf is widely known as the woman's herb. It is extremely tonifying for the uterus, and it has so many vitamins and minerals that we need. It's really great for cramps. So that would be my first go-to. That's just my go-to for like any menstrual cycle issue would be red raspberry leaf. I would also say nettle because it is also really high in vitamins and minerals. Yeah. And then cramp bark.
The liver as well. The nettle pretty good detoxify the liver,
Yeah, it's great detox herb. Cramp bark is great. I mean, it's in the name. It helps with cramps.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's really great. Fennel also is really good for bloating. So those would be my top herbs for PMS.
Okay.
Yeah.
How can we actually use herbs? So I know that you can use them in a pill form, like a tea form. How else can we use them?
Yeah, so my favorite way of taking herbs is through a tincture. And that's what you'll mostly find on my shop is tinctures. It's so simple to do. I mean, it seems really daunting, but it really isn't. It's very simple. So basically, if say we're using dried herbs because it's the most available and easiest to start with, we're just going to fill a jar halfway up and then put, 80% vodka, fill it at the top, or any type of alcohol that you want. It's so simple. And then you just let it sit, preferably for about 6 weeks, but you could do 4 to 8 weeks. And just shake it every day. And then when you're done, strain it, and then you have extremely potent medicine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the tinctures are, unlike vitamins, you don't always get all of the nutrients from that vitamin, especially if your gut is messed up. You might not get everything from that, but a tincture is so much easier for your body to absorb, and you're really getting the maximum benefits from it. So, tincture is my favorite.
How do you use the tincture? Do you put a little drop in water?
Yeah,
or how do you use it?
Yeah, you can do it under your tongue. That's the traditional way.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes they're too strong. Like ginger tincture is very strong to put under your tongue, but you could just add it to water, and that's what I always tell people to do. You could also add it to a juice or a smoothie, just nothing hot, no like hot tea or hot chocolate or anything like that. But yeah, you just add the recommended dose, which is usually like 1 to 3 milliliters a day. Put it in your water and just drink it. And it tastes really good. I mean, I think it tastes pretty good. Yeah. But, I mean, it depends. But, yeah, they're really easy to take. And you could just put it in, like, a little shot of water if you don't really like it either.
Okay, that sounds pretty easy.
Yeah.
How do you go about finding your herbs for your offerings? Because you make the tinctures. Where do you find the herbs? Yeah, so I source my products. I get them from Mountain Rose Herbs, some of them. They're an organic supplier, so that's always great, especially when you're just starting. But I also forage a lot of my herbs. The place that I live in North Carolina, it's really, we have such an abundance. And anywhere that you live, even if you live in a city, there's an abundance of herbs because so many of them are invasive species or weeds. So they grow everywhere, and you just have to be careful that they're not covered in pesticides. But what I always say when you're going foraging is know what plant you're going to look for. Like, if we're going to look for stinging nettle, we know that she likes warm spaces, sunny spaces, and water. Wet environment. And so when you go out looking, you're like, okay, well, there's this river here. She gets plenty of sun. Maybe we'll go over there and see if there's any nettle. Knowing the environment that the plants like to grow in, a lot of times you'll find wood nettle. She likes canopies. She can be used the same way as stinging nettle, but just not really as potent. So just knowing what you're going to look for, knowing the season, what's growing. Like if you're going to find reishi, she loves hemlocks, especially she likes dying hemlocks. Mushrooms always grow on dying trees. And so
if you know a place that has lots of hemlocks, that's where you can go. I mean, we are in North Carolina and Tennessee are great for hemlocks. So we have a lot of reishi around us. But just knowing, yeah, I know. Knowing what you're going to get is really important. Knowing the environment that it likes to grow in. And then you can just go out, go on a hike, go to a park, and just start looking for herbs. Bring, a plant app on your phone or identification book, and just start looking around, seeing what's around you, becoming familiar with it. Just making sure that, yes, make sure it's not poisonous. That's what I always say. Before you go out, if you have a certain plant in mind, always Google if it has lookalikes, because especially with mushrooms, there are so many mushroom lookalikes, especially with turkey tail. So just knowing everything that you're going out to look for, it's a learning process, foraging, and a lot of people are scared of it. But I think it's such a great way to really get into herbalism, because you become way more connected with the plant that you're using. It's like from the beginning, you foraged her and now you're using her as medicine. And it's really beautiful. So foraging is my favorite way to get plants. I don't always get to, because I don't always live in the perfect environment for the herbs that I use, which is why I'll go to an organic retailer like Mountain Rose Herbs. But yeah, foraging's great.
That's really powerful that you do see it through the whole process.
Yeah, it is.
And create that relationship.
Exactly.
You mentioned you was calling the plants she. Is that a term, is there a reason for that? Do you feel like certain have female properties and some have masculine properties?
Definitely. A lot of herbalists refer to plants as she just because of Mother Nature being a feminine energy. But plants themselves do have their own energies. So certain herbalists are very big in that. I am not huge in that, but some are really big into the astrology aspect of herbalism and the energy of it. So some plants will be more masculine tendencies or more feminine tendencies. I just generally call them she for all of them. But yeah, a lot of herbalists are really into that aspect of it. And I think it's really beautiful. It creates a deeper connection and bond with the plant.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Jade's just asked, what about growing them in your garden? Is it easy enough with most herbs?
Yeah, I would say.
Depends on the weather or...
Yeah, it depends on your environment, of course, and what type of herb you're growing. But generally speaking, kitchen herbs like rosemary or thyme are fairly easy to do. And you can grow them in your windowsill in your kitchen or anywhere in your house. And that's a really great way to have herbs most of the year, and a really easy way to start getting into it because they're right there available for you. A lot of herbalists do grow their own herbs, and that's also another wonderful part. Is the same as foraging. You're starting and seeing it from seed to plant. But yeah, making your own garden is wonderful, and growing your own herbs are fairly easy. I think it's one of the easiest things to do is an herb garden. So yeah.
Okay. What other ones would be good starter ones?
I would say, yeah, rosemary, thyme, oregano. Those three would be fairly easy, and they're also wonderful herbs to really get started growing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And someone else asked before, how can we use herbs to boost fertility? So what are ways for that?
So herbs are really great for fertility. I know fertility is such a difficult journey. It's affecting more and more women in the population. It's becoming a very large issue. Herbs are really great for just supporting the overall cycle. So with fertility, there's a lot of things you have to look at in the beginning. Like, are you ovulating is the first question, because if you're not ovulating, you can't get pregnant. Yeah. And so what I always say is before you necessarily start using herbs is just connecting with your cycle. When you are experiencing fertility issues, understanding what's going on and seeing, am I ovulating? Is my luteal phase long or short? Is my menstrual cycle, what does she look like? Is it dark red? Is it light red? Understanding that before you go into herbs, because herbs have different actions and we don't want to use the wrong herb. Not that she will harm you, but that we want to optimize this and make it the best that it can be. And so really just connecting back with your cycle is like the biggest thing that I would say with fertility. And then once you do that, my favorite herb is Vitex berry. She is a progesterone mimicker. Yeah, she's super popular.
Yeah, we have a question about that actually from someone.
Yeah, she's very popular. Everyone knows about her. She's a progesterone mimicker. And so because most women are suffering from estrogen dominance issues, I think that was the question. Progesterone a lot of times can become overshadowed by the estrogen. So it's really great for that issue. But also, you need progesterone to ovulate. And so if you're not ovulating or you just want to improve your ovulation, Vitex berry is really great for that. It'll also help with luteal phase defect, which can cause miscarriages. And so having enough progesterone will hopefully prevent any miscarriages if that is something that you're struggling with. So that's my favorite herb for fertility. But you can also use Tribulus is really great for men and women. Because fertility often is seen as a woman's issue, but it goes both ways. So optimizing both the man and the woman's fertility is really important. So Tribulus is really great for both men and women. It's also really good for women with PCOS. It'll help regulate your ovulation. So if you're having just really inconsistent, irregular ovulations, Tribulus is really great for that. And then also red clover would be good.
I used to take that.
Yeah, if you have a thin uterine lining, it helps to thicken it, which will help better with implantation. It is a phytoestrogen, so if you do have an estrogen dominance issue, I would not recommend taking it.
I was taking it for like low estrogen kind of. Yeah,
exactly. So if you have PCOS or low estrogen issues, red clover would be really great for you, along with cinnamon for men and women. I know, it is such a funny thing because it's like you don't really think about cinnamon. It's like, oh, pumpkin pie, fall time. But cinnamon is so great, especially for women with PCOS. They often have insulin resistance. Yeah, and so cinnamon is really great for that. And it's also good for men's fertility, raising their fertility levels. So those would be my top herbs for fertility. But yeah, just not forgetting to also focus on the men's side of it. It never hurts to help both parties in the situation.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've never thought of cinnamon, to be honest. It helps with your blood sugar balance.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would help with insulin resistance. Cool. What other ones do we have? So some herbs, can you basically pick the herbs that you potentially feel like are right for you and mix them? How do we feel about mixing herbs? Are some like no-nos?
So mixing herbs is great. I always tell people, don't be scared to mix herbs. You're not going to ever have like a bad drug interaction like you would with, Western medicine drugs. But things to look at when you are mixing herbs, this is a little bit more of an advanced thing. So in the beginning, you might not have to really pay attention to this. I would not say it's super important. But when you do get a little bit more advanced or you want to really dive into it, looking at the energetics of the herbs. So is it hot? Is it cooling? Is it drying? These types of things, because your constitution. So in Ayurveda, I'm a pitta, so I'm always very hot, very fiery. My skin is really red all the time. My hair turns red. Yeah. So when knowing that about myself, I would not pick a herb that causes heat for me because I already have too much heat in my body. So I'd go for something a little bit more cooling. It's the same. So say we want to use lavender for allergies, and the person's dealing with really dry nasal membranes or something. It might not be the best because it can be a very drying herb. So we might want to choose something different. So just knowing that about yourself. And you can look this information up online, but I always say the best way to figure out is just taking it yourself, maybe making a tea, seeing how it reacts to your body and how it tastes in your mouth. Is it bitter? Is it pungent? Is it sour? Those kinds of things is important to look at if you want to make a really great potent tincture. Understanding those properties can really improve the quality of medicine.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know there was cooling and heating. That was interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And another thing to just note is that when you're making tinctures, I don't recommend blending roots and leaves because roots need a higher alcohol proof and leaves needs a lower alcohol proof. So I would say make a roots tincture separate and a leaves and flowers tincture separate, just so that you make sure that you're really getting the full medicine from the root and from the leaves. So just little things like that are really important to look at. But in general, herbs are extremely safe to use. As long as you know what you're using, like if you foraged it, just double check, make sure you really know what you're using. But other than that, herbs are so safe to use and they're really great medicine. And so that's why we say, mix and match, blend them together. Some combinations are better than others, but that doesn't mean that the one that you made is not as effective.
Okay. Jade said, Jade first of all said chamomile, question mark. I'm confused. I don't quite know where she meant that. Maybe she can add on to there. But she's also put, I always mix my herbs, but some work best with others. Mm-hmm. So is there like sister herbs, like partner herbs, whether that really go well together?
It really just depends on what you are going for. Oh, she said chamomile for growing.
Yeah.
Chamomile is really great. It is. I know that it's a pretty easy herb to grow, and it's
okay.
I think that's one of the most popular herbs. Everyone knows chamomile. Yeah, she's great. Anyways, yeah. So, it really depends on what you're going for. So, if you're going for a certain body system, or for sleep, there are different herbs. So for sleep, or for anxiety, we want a nervine herb, something that helps calm us down. But some herbs are stimulating nervine herbs, which we don't necessarily want in the tincture. So looking at things like that, for memory as well, looking at the whole aspect of memory. So we want something that de-stresses the body. We want something that helps adapt to us. We want something that helps our memory, so peppermint, rosemary, ashwagandha, mixing, just looking at what is causing this whole issue would really be what I advise. But there's not really any, there are great pairs of herbs. There are herbs that people love to pair together. But in general, there's not really any great, like, sister herbs or anything like that. It just all depends on what body function you're going after, what you want to achieve with the medicine.
All right. So you mentioned ashwagandha a minute ago, and that's something that I use for like stress management. Would you recommend that to clients normally for stress, or is there potentially better herbs that you feel work better for stress?
Yeah, so adaptogens are kind of a touchy subject in herbalism because they are being very widely used. Some herbalists do not recommend them because they can drain. They're supposed to help the adrenals, which they do, but prolonged use can often drain the adrenals because they're stimulating them. I'm not against using them. I love them, especially if you have severe adrenal fatigue or very high stress. I say go for it. But we need to look at a little bit of a broader thing, and that's what the great thing about herbalism is. We need to look at everything. So why are we feeling this stress? What's being caused from it? And now let's look at how it's affecting our body, and let's pick herbs that will better address that. Yeah, so that would be my thing. I'm not against using adaptogens, though. They're really wonderful herbs. I would just say they have become a mainstream wellness thing. So, I think they often get overused, but I don't think there's any harm in using them. I think they're really great for stress. But yeah, there's other ways that you can go about it. There are other herbs that you could use that would help you in these situations. So, yeah, just looking at all of the options, I would say.
Okay. Is there any other? Oh, can you? What effect on the body? Do you have to think about what effect you want on the body, basically? So you mentioned before about cooling, heating. do you have to think about what effect you want on the body, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so if you're starting with herbalism, I would say that's not something that you really need to really concern yourself with. Okay. But as you advance, that is something that you should look at, especially, I mean, as a clinical herbalist, you know, looking at that is extremely important. Mm-hmm. But it can be, and I think it is really important to look at, you know, especially if you're dealing with some severe issues. If you know that your body's heating, we need to stay away from those herbs. Yeah. If you know that your body is really damp, we also need to stay away from those types of herbs. So yeah, just knowing and being aware, I think it is important, but it's not something that I would stress about when you're first starting your herbalism journey. That's something that will come with time, more experience, more knowledge.
Okay, cool. Jay just said, so you wouldn't recommend them all the time, so taking adaptogens all the time, I'm assuming she means. So I swap my adaptogens every month, few months, so maybe only when you are going through a stressful time in your life that you maybe need to start upping them. Should you have breaks?
Absolutely, I agree with that. That is a great way. I say that about all herbs. Okay. And all vitamins. I don't recommend you taking, you know, maca every single day for the rest of your life, because eventually your body will become used to it. Same with like taking melatonin. So I always say, you know, cycle in your herbs, cycle them in and out of your life. So yeah, that would be a great way to do it. Yeah, I love that way, that method. That's good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't do that myself actually, so that's a good idea, to be honest. And thank you, Senna. He's just congratulating us for going live. Cool. Do you feel like there's any other things that on advice people need to know in regards to herbs in the menstrual cycle that we haven't covered? Is there any other like tips or like herbs that stand out to you that you really want to talk about?
I would just say, you know, herbalism and healing naturally is a whole body issue. It's a whole body system. So a lot of times in Western medicine, we're looking at this one symptom and this one issue that's going on, and we're going to address that and ignore the other problems. So really getting to the root cause of why you're experiencing stress. Or with hormones, you know, is it my liver? Is it my estrogen? Is it my lymph system? Same with acne. It's the same way with that. Is my detox system's messed up? Because when we look at that, then we can choose herbs that will affect the whole body. And that's another thing about herbs, is that when you do take them, even if you are symptom taking them, so you're only taking them for your symptoms, they don't just work like that. You know, they don't just attack one aspect. They go through their whole system, and everything that they work on, they will do in your body. So that would be what I would say. Just really evaluating your body, getting in touch with what's going on, asking your body questions, really getting familiar with everything is so important. And that's a huge aspect of herbalism, because you can address the entire body in one tincture. And so that would be my biggest thing.
Do you think that tinctures are the best way then, over pills or over just tea bags, I suppose? Do you feel like they're the best way?
Personally, yes, but I think it depends on your lifestyle. So if you're a huge tea drinker, I say go for tea all day. If you like pill form, if that's easy for you, we can do pill form as well. But tinctures to me they're so much more potent medicine, and they're easier for your body to absorb. And you're getting pretty much the full dosage of vitamins and minerals and everything that you need from them. So I would say tinctures are the best. But, you know, we could do oils, we could do salves. You know, there's so many different ways. Okay. Yeah, so just looking at what your lifestyle is and, you know, making the herbs fit your life.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you. Yeah. I think if we've covered everything, then if you just want to let people know how to find you and your little Etsy shop where you sell some amazing hormonal related herbs, which is great.
Yeah, so all of my things are under the Fertile Glow. So Instagram, the Fertile Glow. My Etsy shop is the Fertile Glow. I have a cycle balance tincture on there, which is incredible. It has helped.
Yeah, I've got my eye on that.
Yeah, so that one's a big one. It's on pre-order right now, but it'll be available at the end of September. And then my website is just the Fertile Glow. I do herbal consultations and health coaching and that type of thing. So Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes,
Cool.
This was so fun. I love talking
about this. Yeah, it was. I've learned a lot, to be fair. So that's great. Thanks for your time today.
Yes, thank you.